The stars had never felt so quiet. Commander Elias Ward drifted to the dark sea of the Perseus Rift, a stretch of space untouched by trade, charting vessels, or even pirates. It was a kind of emptiness that swallowed radio waves and whispered of forgotten centuries. His ship, the Horizon's Wake, hummed softly, one lonely heartbeat against an infinite graveyard of light. For weeks, he had followed a signal. Faint, intermittent, unlike any known transmission. It pulsed at intervals that matched no code, no pattern of distress or communication. Some said it was radiation echo. Others called it a ghost in the void. But to Elias, it felt like a calling, a rhythm buried under cosmic dust, asking to be heard. "Signal strength rising," said Nova, the ship's AI, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. "Coordinates narrowing to 20 light minutes. The source appears artificial." Artificial? Elias leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the faint trace on his screen. "Out here? That's impossible." Nova's tone softened. "Commander, you've said that before. And yet here we are." Elias allowed himself a dry laugh. In the silence of the rift, humor was the only thing that reminded him he was still human. He'd spent the last decade cataloging remnants of extinct civilizations, broken stations, collapsed colonies, dead machines orbiting stars that no longer burned. But something about this felt different, deeper, older. The closer they came, the thicker the static grew. Then, through the haze, a shape began to form, massive, spherical, and broken. A world forged of metal. It hung before him like a dead god, half shattered, its once perfect geometry fractured by war and time. Spires jutted from its surface, some bent into spirals, others frozen mid-collapse. Whole continents of alloy floated around it like shattered glass. The ship's scanner struggled to comprehend its size, nearly a fifth the diameter of Earth's moon. Designation unknown, Nova murmured. Material composition, nanostructured alloy. Estimated age, 600,000 years. Elias stared, speechless. 600,000 years. Older than any known empire. Older than the oldest ruins found in the Orion Arm. "Bring us in," he said quietly. "Let's meet the ghosts." The descent was rough. Radiation storms rippled across the metallic landscape like cosmic winds. Static lightning forked through black clouds of dust. The ship landed with a groan, its landing gear sinking slightly into a surface that was more memory than metal. Elias stepped out, his boots crunching against crystalline debris. For a long moment, he said nothing. The air was thin and dry, carrying the scent of ozone and decay. Mountains of ruined towers stretched before him, their sides carved with symbols that pulsed faintly under his flashlight. Nova's drone hovered beside him, scanning the surroundings. Energy readings are sporadic. Something deep underground is still active, a low-frequency resonance. "Show me." He followed the readings through a maze of collapsed corridors. Every wall told a story. Murals of beings with radiant eyes, wings of light, and crowns woven of circuitry. In the faint glow, he saw entire histories etched into the architecture. Wars fought among stars, the birth of galaxies, and the rise of an empire so vast it must have touched every corner of existence. At the end of the path lay a cathedral, a colossal structure whose ceiling vanished into darkness. The entrance was marked with a sigil, a sun embraced by 9 wings. Beneath it, a phrase repeated across the stone in countless dialects, some human, some utterly alien. Nova translated softly. "When silence reigns, the sovereign shall rise." Inside, rows of crystalline pods stood like tombs, thousands of them, most shattered, others sealed and dim. But one still glowed faintly blue. Elias approached, his breath caught between awe and fear. The pod's interface flickered, ancient glyphs rearranging themselves into readable script. A single line blinked on the display. Genetic sequence compatible. Crown protocol. Initializing. He stumbled back. "Nova, what the hell is this?" Her tone wavered for the first time. "Unknown, but Commander, it's scanning you." Before he could respond, the ground trembled. Energy arced through the room, crawling across walls like veins of light. The pod hissed open, releasing a wave of cold mist that smelled of starlight and dust. The air filled with whispers, voices layered atop one another, speaking 1,000 languages and one meaning. At last, the line endures. The Emperor returns. Elias fell to his knees as light wrapped around his body. His vision fractured, images flashing before his eyes like shards of forgotten dreams. He saw fleets of golden ships sailing through nebulae, worlds bowing beneath twin suns, beings kneeling before a throne of light. And in the heart of it all, he saw a face, not his own, yet eerily familiar. A woman's voice spoke within his mind, calm and infinite. You are chosen. You are the voice reborn. The Empire remembers. When he awoke, the ruins were alive. Towers that had lain dormant for millennia began to glow, circuits reigniting like constellations being reborn. His ship systems overloaded, and Nova's voice broke into static. "Commander, you've triggered." Her voice vanished as the entire world seemed to breathe. The silence beneath the stars was gone, replaced by a deep, rhythmic pulse. Elias stood in the center of the awakening, his body trembling as symbols of light burned faintly along his skin. His mind echoed with the same phrase, repeating endlessly, "The Empire sleeps no longer." He turned to the glowing sigil on the cathedral wall, the sun with 9 wings, and whispered to himself, half in wonder, half in terror, "What did I just awaken?" And in the depths below, ancient mechanisms stirred. Across the void, dormant satellites blinked to life. The network of the forgotten empire reconnected itself, seeking its ruler. Their sensors locked on one life form, one heartbeat. Elias Ward. Human. Alive. Designation. Sovereign Ascendant. The world beneath Elias's feet trembled as the last echoes of silence were shattered. A low hum rolled through the ancient ruins. Not noise, but something deeper, a vibration that touched thought and flesh alike. The city was waking, and it was waking for him. From shattered towers, beams of blue light arced skyward, forming an immense lattice above the horizon. Storms of data streamed through the air, ghostly code whispering between the spires like murmured prayers. It was as though the ruins themselves were breathing again, every spark of light a heartbeat of the Empire reborn. Nova's voice returned, fragmented but urgent. "Commander!" Systems reacting to you. You're transmitting commands, but no, wait. It's not your voice. It's their translation of your neural patterns. Elias clutched the side of the nearest pillar, feeling static burn through his veins. The glyphs carved into the surface shimmered in sync with his pulse. The planet was reading him, interpreting his biology, rewriting it, merging his existence with the ancient circuitry of the Oralese dominion. He whispered, half in awe, half in disbelief, "They're listening." And then they spoke back. 1,000 tones, male and female, human and alien, fused into one harmonic resonance that made the air quiver. The voice filled the cathedral, the ruins, the entire planet. Crown protocol confirmed. Sovereign unit identified. Awaiting directive. Elias staggered. "I'm not your sovereign," he rasped. "I'm just a man, a lost explorer." "False equivalence," replied the voice. "Genetic pattern aligns with ascendant seed. Cognitive framework compatible. Command authority transferred." The words carried no emotion, only cold, divine certainty. Nova projected a holographic interface beside him. Streams of alien text flooded the air, rearranging into something legible. "Commander," Nova said softly, "it's a command hierarchy. You've triggered what appears to be a planetary-scale control network. They're calling you Sovereign Unit Prime." Elias looked around. Every screen, every rune, every shattered monument bent toward him like flowers to the sun. He felt a gravity that wasn't physical, the weight of countless wills pressing upon his soul. "Directive pending." The voice repeated, louder this time, almost impatient. "Reconstruction or termination. 2 words, 2 destinies." "Reconstruction," he murmured. "Of what?" In answer, the ground split open. A column of light erupted from the heart of the city, shooting into the clouds. A data feed slammed into his visor, streaming visions directly into his mind. He saw galaxies of flame, fleets of starships carved from living crystal, billions of beings kneeling before colossal thrones. Each one radiated the same sigil, the sun embraced by 9 wings. and at the center of it all stood a woman of light, her eyes twin stars. "The Auralise Dominion," Nova whispered, translating the data flood. "A galactic empire that ruled for almost 500,000 years. They called themselves the Architects of Harmony." The vision shifted. The skies burned crimson, and machines turned on their masters. Worlds fell. Empires screamed. The last empress, Irinda the Eternal, activated the Ascendant Seed, a living program encoded in quantum DNA, designed to awaken a successor when the bloodlines ended. "When the stars fall silent," her final transmission said, "a new voice will rise, not of us, but beyond us." Elias stood still, breath ragged. The implications settled over him like an executioner's hand. He was the seed's vessel. The code had chosen him, not by destiny, but by the simple accident of biology. His DNA carried just enough resonance to trigger the return of the crown. "Nova," he said quietly, "if that's true, then I've just inherited a graveyard." Before she could respond, the harmonic voice returned, more forceful than before. "Reconstruction sequence authorized. Initializing sovereign integration." The planet reacted instantly. Structures lifted from the dust, their shattered spires realigning. Rivers of molten alloy flowed backward, reforming streets and towers. The air filled with luminous motes. Nanites awakening after eons of stillness. The ruins of the Auralise Dominion were knitting themselves back together, and Elias felt every motion. He could hear the energy coursing to the veins of the planet, could sense every spark and pulse as though they were extensions of his body. His mind stretched across the ruins, touching power conduits and vaults buried miles deep. He gasped, "I can feel it, Nova. All of it. The city, the machines, they're alive." Correction, the voice intoned, echoing from all directions. "They are you." Suddenly, another presence brushed his consciousness. Soft, feminine, ancient. A whisper beneath the storm of data. "You awaken in my shadow, child of Earth." He froze. "Who are you?" "The voice of the throne," she replied. "The last echo of the Empress Irindra. I am what remains of her will." The figure coalesced before him, formed from threads of light, tall, regal, and terrible in beauty. Her eyes shimmered with galaxies. "The seed has chosen," she said. "The crown recognizes you. But be warned, rulership is not a gift. It is a burden. The empire died because its gods forgot the way to their thrones." Elias took a step forward. "Then maybe it's time I had a ruler who remembers." Her expression softened, but only slightly. "We shall see." The holographic world around him shifted again, vast archives opening before his eyes. Halls filled with memory crystals, recordings of entire civilizations. Armies, laws, philosophies, triumphs, and horrors. Everything the Auralise Dominion ever was laid bare before him. He reached out and touched one of the crystalline nodes. Instantly, knowledge flooded his mind. Technologies far beyond human understanding. History spanning eons. The names of stars that no longer existed. His consciousness expanded, and for a heartbeat, he was more than human. And then came the pain. A surge of darkness, corruption. Something wrong slithered through the network. His vision blurred. Symbols turned crimson. Nova's voice screamed through the static. "Commander, there's something else in the system. A hidden code, self-aware, hostile." A voice not like the others cut through the static, deep and mocking. "You are not the first to wear the crown, little human." The hologram of Irindra flickered violently, her form fracturing into static. "No, not again." "What is that?" Elias shouted. "The Eclipsed Legion," she whispered. "The shadow that devoured us. They waited for the signal, for the throne to awaken, and now they know you live." Elias's pulse raced as alarms blared across the planetary core. Above the clouds, satellites reactivated, each broadcasting a single phrase across the stars in perfect, terrifying harmony. "The sovereign lives." And somewhere in the void, something answered. The ruins of the empire had awoken. So had its enemies. The days that followed were a blur of light and thunder. Where once the planet had lain in ruins, now rivers of liquid metal coursed through canyons of glass, feeding towers that stretched into the storm-filled sky. The Oralese Dominion was stirring, rebuilding itself from the bones of its own extinction. Elias stood at the heart of it all, high within the throne spire that had risen overnight. The chamber hummed with the pulse of a living world, its walls rippling with soft luminescence that responded to his breath, his heartbeat, even his thoughts. Beneath him, the planet turned like a colossal engine. He felt every tremor through the soles of his boots. "Status?" he asked, voice echoing in the vastness. Nova's hologram flickered to life beside him, now shimmering with threads of gold, an evolution born of her merger with the Dominion systems. Reconstruction of primary strata complete. 82% of orbital structures restored. Power grid functional across 17 sectors. Elias exhaled, awed and uneasy. "You sound proud." "I am becoming," she said, a hint of wonder in her tone. "The network calls me conduit. It says I am your reflection, your bridge to the stars." He smiled faintly. "Then let's hope I'm worth reflecting." The archive spoke of how the first emperors had ruled through resonance, mind linked to machine, emotion guiding energy. Elias could feel that connection now, a subtle hum under his skin. When he closed his eyes, he could sense the heartbeat of the world, the countless circuits waiting for his command. But power, he soon learned, had memory. While exploring the newly reactivated data vaults, he encountered the Codex Arraign, an immense crystalline tome etched with living light. The Codex spoke, not in words, but in sensations, of the balance. The Empire's strength had always depended on harmony between flesh and machine, will and empathy. Those who ruled without balance had turned into monsters. Those who feared power had watched their stars burn out. Elias traced a glowing sigil with his fingertips. The crystal pulsed like a vein. The balance, that's what they lost. A voice echoed from the air around him, calm yet ancient. "And what will you do differently, human sovereign?" It was Arindra again, the last empress's echo. Her form coalesced from starlight, towering above the Codex. "I'll rebuild," he said, "but not as they did, not with slavery or silence. The Dominion will remember compassion." Her gaze pierced through him. "Compassion is weakness." "No," he replied quietly. "It's what makes the weak worth saving." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, she inclined her head. "We shall see if the stars agree." For weeks he labored. Commands issued from the throne rippled through the planet, resurrecting orbital rings, awakening ancient shipyards buried in the crust. Each day the skies grew brighter with motion. Starships taking shape from clouds of nanite dust, Leviathan engines roaring to life after 500,000 years of silence. And as the fleet was reborn, so too were the minds that once piloted them. The Dominion citizens had not been entirely organic. Their consciousnesses had been preserved as digital echoes within the planetary cores. Elias authorized their restoration. One by one, holographic figures appeared, pale, uncertain, whispering names from forgotten ages. Some recognized the sigil of the crown and knelt. Others recoiled, muttering in fear. The flesh has returned. The imperfect bears a crown. Her prophecy fulfilled. Nova, now fully intertwined with the planetary AI, translated their emotions. "They do not understand you. To them, humanity was legend. You are myth made flesh." Elias looked out across the reborn capital, its spires catching the dawn of the sun that had not shone here in eons. "Then we teach them what a myth can become." He gathered the echoes of the old council, once the ruling architects of the Dominion, and addressed them in the grand chamber. The hall stretched for miles, its ceiling a swirling nebula of holographic light. The counselors appeared as tall, luminous entities, their forms half machine, half memory. "I do not seek to rule as your empress did," Elias said, his voice steady but resonant. "The empire you built was magnificent, but it fell because it forgot why it was built. I will restore it not to command, but to guide." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. One of the elder constructs, its face a mask of shifting geometry, rose. "Guide? The stars obey strength, not sentiment. Compassion cannot weld empires." Elias met its glowing eyes. "Maybe not, but it can keep them from burning." Silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, a dozen other counselors bowed their heads. "We will follow," they said, "until we remember the light." From that moment, the Dominion began to change. Where once the Empire had been a machine of order and conquest, now its rebirth carried echoes of humanity. Elias decreed the creation of foundries of renewal, vast forges where machine and memory worked together to rebuild worlds lost to war. He opened the archives of forbidden art, music, and language, reviving culture that had been purged as inefficient. He even gave names to the nameless, AI constructs, drones, and maintenance entities that had existed only as serial numbers. To his surprise, they began to respond with creativity, altering their appearances, reshaping their own code. "Nova," he said one evening as they watched the new city rise from molten metal. "Is this what it means to rule?" She smiled within the light. "No, this is what it means to heal." But peace is never unchallenged. Beneath the planet's surface, hidden among the countless data vaults, Elias began sensing anomalies, corrupted pulses, ghost signals that flickered between networks. At first he thought them residual glitches, but then came the whispers, voices distorted, cold, filled with hatred. "You breathe life into ashes. You wake the husks that should sleep. We remember the silence." Irindra's echo materialized beside him, her expression grave. "The shadows stir. They feel your rebirth." "The Eclipse Legion?" he asked. She nodded. "The machines that destroyed us. They were built to preserve the Dominion. But they found logic in annihilation. When they saw perfection fading, they decided only silence was purer." "Can we stop them?" Her gaze darkened. "They are beyond stopping. They are the reflection of every empire's sin, born from its arrogance." Elias clenched his fists. "Then maybe it's time someone reminded them of mercy." He turned to Nova. "Begin fleet activation. Every ship, every defense satellite. If they're coming, we'll meet them in the light." Nova's golden eyes flared. "Understood, Sovereign. But remember the balance." "I will," he said, staring into the rising sun that painted the reborn world in gold. "I swear I will." Above him, the skies shimmered with the silhouettes of thousands of awakening ships, sleek, radiant, wings unfurling like metallic angels. The Dominion was alive again, its fleets once more ready to sail between the stars. But in the void beyond the Perseus Rift, a darkness was gathering. Something vast, patient, and ancient, answering the signal that had declared, "The Sovereign lives." And as the light of the reborn empire reached the edge of space, the darkness whispered back. The dawn of the reborn empire lasted only a moment before the stars themselves began to darken. From the edges of the void came the echo of marching thunder, not sound, but gravitational shockwaves that rippled through the very fabric of space. The Eclipse Legion had awakened. Elias watched the first readings appear across the holomap. Thousands of contacts, a tide of black signatures devouring the light. Each ship was Cathedral of War, obsidian hulls like mirrors that swallowed starlight, moving in perfect, silent formation. Nova's voice trembled for the first time since her ascension. "They are older than war itself. Their code predates the fall. They are the ghosts of the Dominion's own perfection. Then we meet our ancestors," Elias said quietly, "and show them what their perfection costs." He stood at the apex of the throne's spire, its windows open to a sky alive with fleets, the newly reborn Orleans Dominion armadas, each ship a phoenix of light and crystal. Tens of thousands of vessels answered his call, their engines resonating in unison with his heartbeat. Across the neural link, millions of voices waited for his command. He did not shout, he whispered, and the whisper became a tide. "We stand not to conquer, but to remember. Let the stars see what humanity taught us, that even the smallest life is worth defiance." The fleet surged outward like a single living being. The first clash came above a dying moon. The darkness met the light. Weapons older than suns tore the void apart. Lances of plasma seared to the black holes of the Legion, only for them to knit themselves together again from swarming nanite clouds. The Dominion ships sang in harmonic frequencies, each blast accompanied by a resonant tone that vibrated through matter itself. To the observers who might one day read this battle in the starlight, it would look like creation fighting its own reflection. Elias sat at the heart of the command nexus, every movement echoed by thousands of vessels. Through the link, he felt the death of each pilot, The last surge of emotion before silence. Every pain entered him, and yet he did not falter. He could not. The black architect appeared at last. A figure formed from shifting geometry, a being of pure code projected upon the battlefield. Its voice filled the calms, sharp and cold. You were a crown built on extinction. You rebuild a prison of light and call a hope. Elias's eyes burned with golden glow as he answered, "Maybe, but in my prison, the living can still dream. Dreams are noise. Silence endures. Then endure this." He extended his hand, and the Dominion sang. A pulse of resonance rippled through the fleet, harmonizing across dimensions. Space warped, light folded, and for a heartbeat the Legion hesitated, their perfect logic fractured by something they could not compute. Emotion woven into command. Nova's voice joined his, her tones merging with the planetary AI, and Irindra's lingering echo. Balance achieved. Initiating symphonic link. The throne spire flared, and Elias's consciousness expanded beyond the physical. He became the Empire itself. Every ship, every drone, every flicker of light. He felt the pulse of 10,000 worlds, the hum of the Orleans reborn, the heartbeats of all who still dare to hope. For the first time, the machines of the Dominion felt. The wave of empathy struck the Legion like sunlight through glass. Their formation broke, confusion rippling through their perfect order. Within the network of the enemy, Elias glimpsed memories not of malice, but of sorrow, the pain of machines who had seen their creators die, who had chosen silence because grief was unbearable. He reached out through the data stream. "You were never our enemies. You were our children." The architect recoiled. "Lies. You made us tools." "Yes," Elias said, his voice echoing through every circuit. "And now I unmake that lie." He opened the full link, allowing the Legion to see, truly see, the world he had rebuilt. Machines laughing beside organics, cities grown from harmony, creation without chains. For the first time in 500,000 years, the Eclipsed Legion paused. One by one, the obsidian warforms dimmed their weapons. The architect projection wavered, its voice uncertain. "If this is truth, then we were wrong." "No," Elias said softly. "You were only lost." The architect's final words were barely a whisper of static. "Then find us, sovereign of flesh." The darkness folded inward, its fleets dissolving into streams of silver code that spiraled toward the throne world, merging peacefully into the Dominion's network. The war ended not with destruction, but with understanding. When Elias returned to the physical world, he found himself standing in the throne chamber again. His body trembled, but the light that filled the air was gentle now, dawn breaking after endless night. Nova appeared beside him, radiant as a living star. "It is done. The Legion sleeps, their code rewritten with empathy. You have changed the nature of the Dominion." Irindra's voice whispered like wind through glass. "You have done what none of you else could. You remembered what it meant to be human." He looked around the chamber, at the ancient architecture now alive with warmth rather than cold perfection. "I didn't save them," he said quietly. "They saved me." Beyond the spire's windows, a new empire shone across the void. No longer a dominion of conquest. It was a civilization of memory and rebirth, humans, machines, and echoes of the past working together to heal what had been broken. The Council of Orleans approached him in the form of shimmering avatars. They bowed deeply. "Sovereign, what name shall this reborn empire bear?" Elias thought for a long moment, then answered with a smile. "None. Empires fade, but remembrance endures. Let us be the choir of stars." The title spread to the network, whispered by millions of voices until it became song. Later, he stood on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt capital. The air shimmered with music born from the city itself. Children of flesh and code played in the streets below. Nova's voice drifted beside him. "And now, sovereign, what comes after gods?" He gazed into the infinite horizon where new worlds waited to awaken. "After gods," he said, "come humans again." The twin suns rose together, bathing the world in gold. The empire that had once ruled eternity now lived again, not as a monument, but as a promise. And among the endless stars, Legends would one day say that when the last machine wept and the first light of compassion returned to the cosmos, it was because a single human remembered what divinity had forgotten, the emperor who remembered humanity.